Good evening or good afternoon or good morning wherever you are. My name is Rimamnde Shawulu. This is the other side. It does appear that we are, as predicted in February, at the very end of the life of the People's Democratic Party, the party that was formed by several political activists such as the late Chief Solomon Lar and Abu Remy, the former governors of Plateau and Kano State, several other people who signed the famous letter first by a group called G8, which was then expanded to 18 and I think later to 34, to the late General Sani Abacha, asking him to do everything in his power to ensure that Nigeria returned to civilian rule. Of course, the PDP or most of those leaders banded together in one party, a party that ignored or did not bother about the ideologies and the divisions that had affected the First Republic and the Second Republic. We saw members of the Northern Progressive Element, some people from the All Action Group and later the UPN, as well as people from the United Mutual Belt Congress, the NCNC, and later the GNPP and NPP, coming together to form a party. And so the People's Democratic Party was formed. It succeeded in getting out the military, and it also succeeded in ensuring that the military did not take over immediately after it handed over. The thought then was that it was necessary for the military to have comfort so that they would not return back to power. That it was important that a strong military like the Nigerian military that had held power for so long should not be threatened by the immediate post-military government. And that was one of the reasons why it was thought then that the best thing to do would be to bring a former military person that had the support of the military and will hopefully lead the civilian government and into a stable administration, which was one of the reasons why General Olusegun Obasanjo, who was then imprisoned in Yola for allegedly being part of a coup plot to overthrow General Sani Abacha, was contacted and arrangements were made, and it became obvious that he was going to be elected president of Nigeria before he was freed from the Yola prison. And so we had the People's Democratic Party come to power, a party whose ideology was mainly to get the military out and to ensure national development. All the ideologies of the past, the ethnic divisions of the past, were seemingly buried. The question I asked in February was, has the PDP finished the duty for which it was established? And this was because so many crises, many of them man-made by people blaming others for the problems. We had a party where people will go out of the party, work against the party, come back and become members of the party and even contest elections on the platform of the party. And once they did not win the election, they simply got out of the party. And the problems became more intense in 2011, 2015. Before then, power rotated from President Olusegun Obasanjo in the south to President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua in the north. And of course, President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua died having spent nearly or most of 1 year in the hospital in different parts of the world. And so President Goodluck Jonathan, who was the vice president, became president. And then there were arguments, people from the north, that President Goodluck Jonathan should not contest the 2011 election. Or if he wanted to contest, he should accept to be a vice president to whoever was going to run from the north, because it was said that it was the turn of the north to produce the president then. However, many people across the country came together and worked against the notion that President Goodluck Jonathan should not contest the election. During that election, Vice President Atiku Abubakar contested against President Goodluck Jonathan during the primaries at Eagle Square, where Vice President Atiku was defeated. And thereafter, some elements of the PDP, including board members, teamed up with a group that called themselves the Northern Consensus Group to produce a consensus candidate against President Goodluck Jonathan. In the group were Vice President Atiku Abubakar, the late Adamu Chiroma, and General Ibrahim Babangida. However, President Muhammadu Buhari, then General Muhammadu Buhari, came out as the Northern Consensus candidate, and he lost the election to President Goodluck Jonathan. But the cry that it was the turn of the North did not end. And when President Goodluck Jonathan came out to contest for a second term, majority of Northern political leaders left the PDP, teamed up with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's ACN and Buhari's CPC to form what you now called the All Progressive Congress. Fast forward to 2029, Vice President Atiku Abubakar returned back to the PDP, and in 2019, he got the ticket of the PDP. He lost the election to President Muhammadu Buhari. And in a twist of fate, Vice President Atiku Abubakar championed the cause not in 2011, 2015, and 2019 against President Muhammadu Buhari, came out to contest the election in the PDP primaries that ended in having then Governor Nyesom Ezenwo Wike of Rivers State defeated. In his anger, Governor Nyesom Wike brought together 5 PDP governors and formed what he called the G and worked against Vice President Atiku Abubakar in 2023. Governor Wike and his people now sang the song that it was the turn of the South. And since then, the PDP has not been able to come together. Just the last 48 hours or so, Governor Similaya Fubara, the only PDP governor that had remained in the South-South, has decamped to the APC. And Governor Caleb Mutfwang, finally, according to news reports, has found his way to the APC. So as of today, the PDP governors that remain are only Governor Sheyi Makinde of Oyo State, Governor Amadu Fintri of Adamawa State, Governor Bala Mohammed of Bauchi State, and Governor Lawal of Zamfara State. So effectively, you can argue, and you will not be wrong to say that PDP has been destroyed. And of course, there are so many cases in court now by different factions of the PDP. And news reports have it that the 2 factions of the PDP met on Friday or so with the chairman of the Independent Electoral Commission. And according to news reports, the professor was advising them to reach agreement on the way forward for the party, because as it is now, the court cases, howsoever they go, will not be pleasing to one or the other factions or groups within the PDP. And that means that effectively the PDP might not be an effective opposition in the coming elections. To be clear, for all practical purposes, PDP might not be able to rise up from the current situation that it has found itself. There are those within the 2 factions of the PDP who argue that they can come together. But my understanding is that the wounds that both sides have inflicted on each other are so deep, and the interest that they have in the next election, 2027, are so different, so far apart, that it's unlikely that they will genuinely come together. And in any case, assuming if the courts finally decide to give the party to the group led by the former minister, Turaki, it is unlikely that the group working with the FCT minister, former governor of Rivers State, will work with that group. It is also unlikely that if the courts decide in favor of the group led by Governor Nyesom Wike, that the group will have any serious influence outside the Niger Delta states. The reason is simple. All the governors who have recently decamped from the PDP to the APC in the South will want to prove that they are in control of their people. And so they will do everything possible to ensure that people they field in the APC will win the elections. So the chances of the PDP under governor of the PDP, whether it is the faction led by former Governor Nyesom Wike or the factions led by Turaki, will be of any electoral value in any of the southern states, except perhaps for your state. And for all practical purposes, he will want to demonstrate that he's in control of the state, electoral relevance. There are people that hope that PDP may come back from where PDP members have dropped it into. Well, it is possible in human life and human activities. You never say never. And in any case, in politics and human affairs, 1 + 1 may never be equal to 2. It may be equal to 0 or equal to 100 or something. So it's possible that PDP may come back to life after 2031. But the reality is this: nature abhors a vacuum. The vacuum of a leading opposition that PDP is willingly vacating now is very unlikely to be left unoccupied. Nature, like I said, abhors vacuum. So something is going to come up to fill that vacuum. And it's very unlikely that whatever will come out to fill that vacuum will easily give way to PDP. So we might as well be saying that this PDP that was put together by politicians from all shades of political persuasions to get Nigeria out of the hands of the military may be at the very end of its life. What is your take about what is happening in the PDP? Is there a chance that the PDP can come back to life? Let me have your take on this. And please don't forget to like and share our videos. My name is Rimamnde Shawulu. This is The Other Side.